You don't find yourself in the world. You build yourself one brave decision at a time. I know some of you are standing at the edge of your next chapter right now. A new job, a new city, a new hope, or maybe just a new version of you trying to break through. And I know what it feels like to wonder if you're enough, to fear the unknown, to carry expectations that were never yours to begin with. But hear me, your identity is not something the world hands you. It's something you craft with faith, with grit, and with a fire that refuses to go out. So let me share 7 truths, 7 steps that shaped my own becoming. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that the world will not pause, turn around and hand them permission to step forward. And that moment is the beginning of becoming. For so long, I kept looking outward for approval, for someone to nod and say, yes, now you're ready, now you can begin. I didn't know then that waiting for permission is the quietest way to disappear. You shrink a little every time you wait for someone else to recognize your power. You dim your own light because you're hoping someone else will switch it on for you. But life doesn't work like that. Growth doesn't work like that. Destiny certainly doesn't work like that. You can't step into your purpose with a whisper. You have to walk into it with a declaration.br. And I remember the fear of that first declaration. I remember how heavy it felt, as if speaking up for myself would make the world question my place in it. I worried that I would seem arrogant or unprepared or unworthy. What I didn't understand yet was that claiming your identity isn't arrogance, it's alignment. When you say, I am here, you're not inflating yourself, you're simply stepping into the truth that God has been speaking over your life since day one. You're meant to be here. You're meant to be seen. You're meant to take up space. But that truth becomes real only when you agree with it. An agreement requires courage. It's not the loud, dramatic kind of courage people celebrate on stage. It's quieter. It happens in your heart, in the moments no one sees. It's the courage to choose yourself before the world chooses you. To bet on a future you can't yet see. To say, I am worthy, even when doubt is screaming otherwise. That level of courage is the foundation of identity, because you cannot build a life on the shaky ground of waiting for someone else to validate you. You build a life by showing up to your calling before anyone else recognizes it. You build it through decisions that feel too big for you, through steps that terrify you, through faith that carries you when confidence fails. And the beauty is, once you stop waiting for permission, you stop living small. You stop asking, am I allowed? And start asking what is possible. Your world expands because you expand. You begin to see opportunities where you once saw obstacles. Doors that were invisible start appearing because you finally started knocking. And the truth is, the world responds differently when you claim yourself. Not because the world changes, but because you do. Something shifts inside you. You move differently. You speak differently. You carry yourself like someone who understands their assignment. And let me tell you something important. Independence isn't rebellion. People often misunderstand that. Independence isn't about rejecting guidance or disrespecting the people who shaped you. It's about taking ownership of the path God carved for you. It's about saying, I honor where I come from, but I also honor where I'm going. It's about stepping out of the shadows of expectation and saying, my life is not a script written by others. It's a journey authored by God, and I am responsible for walking it. That responsibility is powerful. It demands discipline. It demands truth. It demands that you hold yourself accountable, not for who you were, but for who you are capable of becoming. The moment you stop waiting for permission, you unlock a new level of strength. You realize that the world doesn't have to approve your identity for you to live it. You realize that worthiness isn't something you earn, it's something you embrace. And suddenly, the things that once intimidated you start losing their power. Because now your identity is not built on other people's opinions. It's built on conviction, on intention, on a sense of calling that cannot be taken away. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable in the beginning. You will doubt yourself. You will have days where the old habits of shrinking try to pull you back. But independence is not a single moment, it is a practice of choosing yourself, a practice of choosing truth over fear, purpose over hesitation, faith over insecurity, and every single time you choose it, you become a little stronger, a little clearer, a little more you. The day you stop waiting for permission is the day you finally step into the light. And once you step into that light, your life begins to unfold differently. You stop surviving and start becoming. And that, truly, is the beginning of your glow up, the one that starts from within. There's a quiet tension that lives inside every one of us, the pull between where we come from and where we're meant to go. We carry our families, our cultures, our histories, our traditions like invisible threads woven into our being. These roots are beautiful. They hold stories, sacrifices, prayers whispered by generations before us. And for a long time, I believed honoring my roots meant staying within the boundaries they drew for me. I thought respect meant restriction. I thought loyalty meant limitation. But life has a way of teaching you that roots are not cages. They are anchors meant to ground you, not imprison you. Growing up, I felt the weight of expectations that weren't intentionally placed on me, but were simply inherited. You know that feeling? The silent pressure to be a certain kind of person, to follow a certain blueprint, to live a life that fits neatly into someone else's understanding of what is safe and respectable. And you try. You do your best. You fit yourself into shapes that don't feel like you. You shrink certain dreams. You soften certain truths. You tuck away the parts of you that feel too much, or too different, or too bold. You convince yourself that playing small is an act of gratitude.br. But gratitude doesn't require you to dim yourself. Gratitude doesn't ask you to hide your calling. Gratitude is about recognizing the love and sacrifice that brought you here, and then honoring it by becoming everything you were created to be. Sometimes the most powerful way to honor your roots is to grow beyond the boundaries they imagine for you. I had to learn that leaving the familiar doesn't mean abandoning it. Walking toward a bigger dream doesn't mean you love your origins any less. In fact, stepping into your own path can deepen your appreciation for where you came from, because you start to understand how much strength those foundations gave you. You realize that every lesson, every struggle, every tradition built resilience inside you. A quiet armor you didn't even know you were wearing. But you must also understand this. Not everyone will understand your expansion. Sometimes the people who love you most will be the ones who fear your growth the most. Not out of jealousy, not out of malice, but out of protection. They see the world as dangerous, unpredictable, unkind, and they want you safe. But safe is not the same as fulfilled. Safe is not the same as purposeful. Safe is not the same as alive. There will come a moment when you have to choose, not between your family and your dreams, not between your culture and your ambition, but between staying small and growing tall, between repeating the past and building the future, between living someone else's story and writing your own. And let me tell you something real. Growth will stretch you. It will pull you out of comfort. It will make you feel like you are betraying something familiar, even when you're not. You'll feel guilt. You'll feel fear. You'll hear voices in your head. Who do you think you are? Isn't this too much? But I want you to hear this louder. You are allowed to expand. You are allowed to redefine yourself. You are allowed to build a life that makes sense to your soul, even if it confuses everyone else. When you carry your roots with pride but refuse to be confined by them, you step into a different level of identity. You start living from your own truth. You start realizing that the world is wide, and God didn't create why. Oh, to occupy only a corner of it. Your story is meant to travel. Your gifts are meant to reach places your ancestors could only dream of. And your courage becomes their legacy continued. And here's the beautiful twist. When you grow, your roots grow with you. You become a bridge between the past and the future. You become the living proof that where you come from may shape you, but it does not limit you. You are not bound to the soil. You are not chained to a narrative. You are not required to live a life scripted by tradition or expectation. You were born to grow wings as powerful as your roots. You were born to rise. You were born to expand beyond borders that were never meant to contain you. And the moment you realize that, the world becomes larger, brighter, and full of possibilities you once believed belonged to someone braver than you are, but you are brave. You always were. There's a moment in life when you look around and realize that the very things you once tried to hide are the things that make you unforgettable. And yet, for so many years, we spend our lives trying to blend in, trying to soften our edges, trying to sound like everyone else so we can belong. We walk into rooms and measure ourselves against invisible checklists. Do I fit? Do I match? Do I look enough like what they expect? And in that silent measuring, we slowly suffocate our own magic. We shrink the parts of us that don't align with the world's definition of normal, hoping the world will finally say, "You belong now." What we don't realize is that belonging that demands self-erasure is not belonging at all. It is exile dressed up as acceptance. I learned this the hard way. I walked into spaces where every eye told me I didn't quite fit their picture, my accent, my culture, my rhythm, my way of seeing the world. Everything about me felt like it clashed with the room. And that discomfort used to sting. I thought it was a verdict, that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't right, that I needed to change to be chosen. So I tried to quiet myself. I tried to adjust my identity so the world wouldn't feel so uncomfortable around me. I tried to be smaller, softer, more acceptable. But every time I did that, I felt a piece of my soul step back, as if waiting patiently for me to realize that I was abandoning myself. There comes a day, and maybe this is your day, when you wake up and realize that difference is not a flaw. It is destiny. The parts of you that don't fit are often the very parts that are meant to lead you someplace extraordinary. Your uniqueness isn't something you need to apologize for. It is something you need to amplify. Think about it. God doesn't make duplicates. Nature doesn't repeat itself. Every fingerprint is different. Every wave breaks differently. Every sunrise paints a new story across the sky. So why would you ever believe you are meant to be a copy of someone else? Your difference is your divine signature. It's the mark that tells the world, I am here for a purpose that no one else can fulfill. And I promise you, the moment you stop forcing yourself into molds that were never meant for you, something shifts. People start seeing you differently, not because you changed to match them, but because you finally stood firm in who you are. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to be, but because authenticity is irresistible. Confidence becomes less of a performance and more of a natural expression of your identity. Suddenly, rooms that once intimidated, you start to feel like opportunities. Conversations become deeper, connections become real, life starts aligning with who you truly are, not who you pretend to be, but embracing your difference takes courage. It means accepting that not everyone will understand you. It means walking into rooms where some people may not clap for you and still standing tall. It means knowing that rejection isn't always a sign you're wrong. Sometimes it's a sign you're too original to be placed in the wrong environment. Your destiny isn't tied to people who can't recognize your magic. And here's the truth. Most people don't say out loud, when you fully step into your difference, you give others permission to step into theirs. You become a mirror of possibility. You become a reminder that authenticity is strength, not vulnerability. You become a light that tells someone else, you don't have to blend in to be worthy. You don't have to be ordinary to be loved. You don't have to be a replica to be respected. But the world may try to smooth your edges because your edges challenge its expectations. The world may try to dim your light because your light reveals where it has settled for shadows. But your purpose requires those edges. Your voice requires that volume. Your future requires that authenticity. You are not here to blend in. You are here to stand out, not for attention, but for alignment, not for applause, but for purpose. You were crafted differently because your path is different. You were wired uniquely because your mission is unique. The sooner you stop resisting that truth, the sooner your life begins to unfold with clarity and direction. So let the world say you're different. Let them whisper. Let them stare. Let them misunderstand. Because one day they won't be able to ignore what God was shaping all along. But you're not meant to fit in. You're meant to transform the spaces you enter simply by being who you are. There's a truth no one wants to talk about. When it comes to becoming yourself, identity isn't created in the spotlight. It's built in the shadows. In the early mornings when the world is quiet and you are left alone with your intentions. In the late nights when doubt sits heavy on your chest and you still choose to show up anyway. People admire the glow up, the success, the confidence. But they rarely see the hours of discipline that carved it. Discipline is not loud. It does not seek attention. It is the quiet architect shaping who you become long before anyone else notices. There were days when I didn't feel ready. Days when insecurity felt louder than faith. Days when the mountain of... But because discipline demands focus. And focus demands that you release anything that slows you down. Some will say you've changed, and they'll be right. Because growth always changes you. Because becoming requires shedding. Because discipline asks you to let go of the versions of yourself that can't survive in the future God is preparing for you. But the reward is clarity, strength, a sense of self that no criticism, no failure, no setback can shake. Discipline gives you the confidence of someone who has met themselves in the hardest moments and refused to break. It gives your identity roots. It gives your purpose direction. It shapes your life into something intentional, something powerful, something aligned with who you truly are. One day people will look at you and say, "You're so confident, you're so strong, you're so lucky." They won't see the early mornings, the sweat, the tears, the sacrifices. They won't see the nights you prayed for strength, the moments you almost quit but didn't. But you will know. You will know what it cost. You will know what it took. And that knowledge will make your success feel sacred. Because discipline is how you build a life worth living. Not because it's perfect, but because it's purposeful. There's a kind of grief that nobody warns you about. The grief of outgrowing the person you once prayed to become. It feels strange, almost disloyal, to let go of the version of you that carried you through storms, that survived chapters you thought would break you, that held on even when life felt unbearably heavy. But growth demands honesty, and honesty will one day reveal a truth that feels both painful and liberating. The person you used to be is not the person you are meant to remain. There was a time when I held on to older versions of myself so tightly, afraid that if I let them go, I would lose my identity. Those versions were familiar, predictable, safe. But safe can become suffocating when your soul is ready to expand. I remember moments when I knew deep down that I had outgrown certain habits, certain environments, certain ways of thinking. Yet I stayed. I stayed because the unknown was frightening. I stayed because comfort masqueraded as peace. I stayed because the old me was easy to explain, easy to understand, easy to fall back into. But eventually the discomfort of staying became louder than the fear of leaving. And that is when transformation begins. You see, the old you served a purpose. They protected you. They made decisions with the knowledge, courage, and strength they had at the time. They got you through things the current you might not even remember surviving. Honor that version. Appreciate them. In everything that can't rise with you. There comes a moment in every journey where you realize that the loudest voices are not always the truest ones. The world is full of noise, opinions, judgments, trends, comparisons, expectations. It's easy to get swept up in it. It's easy to chase applause that feels sweet for a moment, but leaves you empty the moment it fades. I used to think validation meant love. I used to think approval meant belonging. I used to think acceptance from others meant acceptance of myself. And then life taught me a lesson I will never forget. Love and validation are not the same currency. One is eternal, the other evaporates the moment you stop performing. When you chase validation, you start shaping yourself into whatever the world claps for. You laugh a little louder, dim a little quieter, bend your truth, shrink your dreams, soften your edges, all to fit into a mold that was never designed for your soul. It feels good at first. You feel seen, you feel admired, you feel chosen. But slowly, almost quietly, you lose pieces of yourself, you forget what you want. Try to stand firm in your identity, even when the world tries to mold you into something else. It is choosing to live from truth rather than applause. It is choosing to be guided by purpose rather than popularity. It is choosing love, steady, grounded, eternal love, over validation that flickers like a flame in the wind. The moment you prioritize love, everything in your life shifts. Your relationships become healthier because they're no longer transactions. Your decisions become clearer because they're no longer influenced by fear. A path becomes straighter because you're no longer pulled in every direction by other people's expectations. You stop living for the world and start living from your soul. And here's the most beautiful part. When you choose love over validation, you begin to glow from within. Not the glow that comes from approval, not the glow that depends on attention, but the glow that radiates from alignment. The glow that says, I know who I am, and I am not afraid to walk in that truth. That glow cannot be manufactured. It cannot be taken away. It cannot be dimmed by the noise of the world. One day, you will thank yourself for choosing love, real love, over validation. You will thank yourself for listening to your intuition instead of the crowd. You will thank yourself for anchoring your identity in something deeper than applause. Because applause fades, trends fade, opinions change, but love, the love you cultivate within yourself, the love you give, the love you receive, the love God places in your heart, that love stays. And that love will carry you through every chapter of your becoming. There is a moment in every person's life when they realize that walking their own path doesn't mean walking alone. For the longest time, I believed independence meant doing everything on my own. No help, no guidance, no support. I thought strength meant silence. I thought bravery meant isolation. But life has a way of softening your pride and strengthening your faith at the same time. It teaches you that independence and divine guidance are not opposites. They are partners. You walk with God, but you walk your own path. There were seasons in my life when I couldn't see more than one step ahead. Seasons when I felt lost, confused, unsure if I was making the right choices. And in those moments I learned something sacred. Faith is not a map. It will not hand you a clear outline of what comes next. It will not show you the entire staircase. Faith is a compass. It points you toward the truth. It points you toward purpose. It points you toward growth. But you still have to take the steps. You still have to walk forward without guarantees. And that's what independence truly looks like. Moving with courage, not certainty. Trusting your step even when the ground feels unfamiliar. Listening to the whispers of your own soul even when the world shouts its opinions at you. Choosing alignment with your purpose over alignment with other people's expectations. Not because you think you're invincible, but because you know you're guided. There were decisions I made that didn't make sense to anyone else. Choices that seemed risky, unrealistic, or bold. And honestly, they scared me too. But every time I followed that inner pull, that quiet nudge that felt less like ambition and more like divine direction, life unfolded in ways I could never have scripted. Because when you walk your own path with God beside you, you step into rooms not built by human approval, but by divine timing. You enter chapters that were written for you long before you ever knew you'd grow into them. But the world will try to distract you from that path. People will project their fears onto your dreams. They will offer opinions that sound practical, but shrink your spirit. They will try to steer you toward the familiar because the unfamiliar terrifies them. And you must learn to say, I hear you, but I trust the one who guides me more. That is independence. Not arrogance, alignment, not defiance, obedience to your purpose. Walking with God doesn't mean life becomes easy. It means life becomes meaningful. It means even your struggles have purpose. Even your delays have direction. Even your heartbreaks have lessons woven into them. And when you look back, you'll realize that the moments that broke you were actually the moments that built you. They shaped your character. They strengthened your voice. They deepened your wisdom. They prepared you for the blessings you weren't ready for yet. And here's the part most people overlook. Walking your own path will sometimes make you feel misunderstood. You'll outgrow things you once prayed for. You'll crave peace more than company. You'll choose solitude over noise. You'll say no to opportunities that look shiny, but don't speak truth to your spirit. But don't mistake isolation for abandonment. Sometimes God separates you so He can strengthen you. Sometimes He removes people not to punish you, but to protect you. Sometimes the silence in your life isn't emptiness. It's preparation. As you walk, you'll develop a kind of inner knowing, a quiet certainty that doesn't need approval or applause. You begin to trust yourself because you trust the one who made you. You stop comparing your journey to others because you realize everyone's compass points in a different direction. You stop begging people to understand you because your purpose was never meant to be explained. It was meant to be lived. And one day, the path that once felt lonely will feel sacred. The decisions that once felt heavy will feel right. The steps that once felt shaky will feel guided. You will look back and see a golden thread running through your entire story. Moments of alignment, moments of protection, moments, grace. Walking with God. But walking your own path means this: you do not need a perfect plan. You need a faithful heart. You do not need certainty. You need courage. You do not need the world's approval. You need God's direction. And when you move with that kind of conviction, nothing and no one can stop the becoming that is already written for you. Because the path is yours, the strength is yours, the calling is yours, and the guidance that has always been there, quietly, faithfully, powerfully, leading you home to yourself. At the end of the day, everything you are searching for, strength, clarity, identity, purpose, it's already inside you, waiting quietly, patiently. And when you finally choose to rise, when you finally